But you never know that you could. And when you feel that way, ain't it good, good dancing in the red and gold. Dancing in the red and gold.
What's up, Faithful? Welcome to the 49er Faithful UK Live. As always, I'm your host, Paul Hope. And I'm sure none of you will be surprised to hear that today we are going to be talking all things NFL draft. The mocks are over. That's right, everyone. All 14,605 of them. And it's time for us to make our final projections. Your 49ers have 10 picks, including a first round pick this year. 256 players are days away from realising their dreams of being drafted by an NFL franchise. Joining me on the clock today, I've drafted in some very special guests. Two of the finest the UK Faithful has to offer. I'm delighted to welcome back to the 49er Faithful UK Live our very own Erik Orrgárde and Lee Gowland. But before I bring them both onto the stage, I just wanted to clarify that I did set the chaps some homework. We have not consulted each other when making these draft picks, and much to Lee's horror, and I mean much to Lee's horror, I did not allow them to make any trades. Now, this show is based on the 49ers having 10 picks and our first pick being number 31. I am aware the Niners might trade up or down before the draft, but that discussion is for another day. We also won't be doing a Would You Rather on today's show. I'm going to do an interactive one on social media, so keep an eye on that one. I've kept the guests waiting far too long already. I can see them itching backstage. As always, our very own Mr. Relevant has answered that bat signal to join me on today's show. And I'm delighted to welcome back once again my good friend, Erik Orrgárde.
Hey, good evening, Paul. Very excited. It's draft season. How are we feeling?
I've got my draft day post-it note ready. Erik didn't get the message because I forgot to send it, but we'll get into that later. Also joining us, Erik, making his much anticipated return to the 49er Faithful UK Live. I'm delighted that El Presidente is back. I mean, who better, Erik, to join us than the man who was literally announced a draft pick for the 49ers? That's right. The pancake eating mother trucker, Lee Gowland, is in the house.
I was just about to use exactly the same phrase there about the no trade rule. Thanks for that intro, Paul. Glad to be back and looking forward to this. It will come as no surprise that not only have I got my 10 picks, but I've also got optional picks for the first 3 rounds.
Well, I've subscribed to John Chapman's show. So I went to work today with this lovely draft guidebook printed off, notes made, and then Tracy said about 10 minutes ago, why on earth have you done all that work? You're going to go live with the chaps. They're just all going to go out with the window. And I was like, yeah, you've watched our show before. So before we get into it, there's a couple of people in the chat. Just want to show the love. So Red Jet, like and subscribe. She's checking in from the US of A. I like that. 49ers forever. What's up? Gary is in the house. Most of those were you, Lee, apparently. Good evening, Colin. Now, after going the past 2 years, chaps, without a first round pick, the Niners are back Thursday with the number 31 overall pick. We boast 5 more picks in the top 135. And did either of you catch John Lynch's press conference on Monday before I go any further?
I didn't, but I got the gist of it through Twitter. I refuse to call it X. I got the gist of it through Twitter.
It's Twitter. What about you, Erik? Did you
very
catch?
much
I know you've been busy.
Yeah, same as El Presidente. I've caught the gist of it. Always interesting to hear from Mr. Lynch this time of year. Always expect the unexpected with Mr. Lynch in charge. So yeah, looking forward to it.
So the reason I ask is John Lynch said on Monday that the 49ers had 22 players with first round grades, which seems higher than usual, but he noted the back end of the draft might be weaker because the team had 83 players with a draftable grade return to school. So it means if none of those 22 make it to their range for a trade up, we could be in the market to move down. So I did say at the start of the show, chaps, you weren't allowed to make trades, which was much to Lee's horror. But before we get into who we think we're going to pick, I do think we should have a little discussion around whether the team are going to trade up or down. So I am going to hand over, well, Presidente at this point, Eric, because he loves to make a move or two on draft day. So
yeah, so I think to answer that question, it all depends on who drops. So without giving anything away, there's a defensive lineman who's more than likely going to go in the mid to late teens. But if he drops, mid to late, might be even the early teens, if he drops, I can well see us moving up. Even though I don't think anybody sees it as a particular position of need, I look at our defensive line now, and I think it's one of the weakest one we've had for a good 5-6 seasons now. I've got my concerns about it. Although when we go through the draft, you'll see that I'm not that concerned about it based off who I've picked. But I've done that based off the fact that I couldn't make any trades. So I've gone for players who I think will be available around about there. As far as trading up or down, I think either can happen. Potentially, we might end up with 2 first-round picks because I am still not convinced that we will not trade Brandon Ayuk. His agent has come out and said the right words, the right things to try and calm everybody down. But if I was John Lynch, I'd be saying to his agent, look, just calm everything down, tell everybody they're talking rubbish. Because this whole draft process, you have to keep everything secret. I think I may have start a chat there. Let me just quickly find it. Because I agree 100%. Here we go. Yeah. So this is about the draft grades and the kids that are going back to school, the 83. He's fibbing. He is fibbing. Everything that comes out of his mouth, you can't trust a word he says. You can't trust a word that comes out of any GM's mouth in the lead up to the draft. It's all smoke and mirrors. They're all playing a game. Nobody wants to show the hand. It's essentially a game of poker. And John Lynch has proved to be quite good at this. We've been saying it for the past 5-6 years now. Ever since John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan came in, nothing has been leaked from Santa Clara. Nothing at all has been leaked. So I can't see anything being leaked at the moment. Can I see us trading Brandon Ayuk? I actually can. And I think I've mentioned it for the past 2 seasons. To try and calm everybody down and say, look, we're going to lose a star or two. We might even lose one that we didn't expect to lose in a quite sensational trade. And I still think that could be Brandon Ayuk. If we can get a first-round pick, which, if you believe the rumours, that's what we're looking for, then, yeah, what could be pick 20, Steelers. But we'll find out tomorrow night, or I should say very early Friday morning.
Yeah, go on,
I was just going to say, I'm a little bit different to El Presidente. I think history is going to repeat itself. It's going to be Debo again. It's going to be Nick Bosa again. We're going to renew Brandon Ayuk, and it's going to happen after the 1st of June, isn't it? Whenever the deadline is, where the money gets saved, etc. Interesting with El Presidente's take on the D-line, because actually, if you look at again, not to give too much away, if you look at my draft, I would tend to agree. But it does sound like we've drafted some very different players. And the other thing I will caveat is I'm also not an average college watcher. So I've very much done my homework based on the good draft book from Mr. John Chapman, similar to yourself, Paul. And I've gone based on no trades, which I also found really difficult because whenever I was doing the mock drafts without trading, I didn't like them as much as the ones I did where I could trade up or down in the first round. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, so David has put there that he thinks Ayuk will be a 49er, no question about it, all pro in his prime. It's just draft banter. Now, I think, Lee, to clarify what you're saying, me and Eric said this a couple of weeks ago, if Ayuk is to be traded, the deadline is draft, and we want a first-round pick, basically. Similar to the Debo situation with a couple of years ago when the Jets were sniffing around. That's the deadline for me.
Yeah, I mean, I can even go one further, Paul. I can tell you, it's going to be pick 20. If he hasn't been traded by pick 20, we're not trading him.
Yeah. So
that's the way I see it.
So James has spotted. So it was residency day yesterday. The chaps had a 50% sale off. So let's just say one or two of us have added to our collection. So yep, that was the call on tonight. So we're joined by 49ers royalty. Mariah is in the house. It's always good when our friends from across the pond check in. Now, I know you're itching to tell me who you've picked because I enjoyed preparing for this one today with my homework. But Lynch and Shanahan's drafting history indicates that using an early pick on an offensive lineman, which what most people want, that's the noise I'm seeing on social media. You watch all the content creators that I watch, most people in the chat are saying we want an offensive lineman. But it's not a sure thing. We've only used 2 picks in the first 3 rounds. McGlinchey, 2018, Aaron Banks, 2021, on offensive linemen since they arrived in 2017. So I am wondering, chaps, where you're going to go. Now, managed to get 11 minutes in. We haven't given the good people any kind of draft news yet, as in where we're going. I'm going to put Eric on the spot, Lee. Pick 31. Erik Orrgárde is on the clock. Who are you selecting for the San Francisco 49ers?
Right. Okay. Yeah, but I feel the pressure now, especially with the presence of mock draft royalty in Mr. Gowland. But I am quite aware that we lost Chase Young after the Super Bowl. He was quite a big part of what we do. We play 4 D linemen. We play 2 on the edge. They're both expected to rush the quarterback, create that pressure. So with my first pick, I went for Chop Robinson, edge at Penn State. So 21-year-old edge player. I think we need to go and we need to get that elite edge player to play opposite Bosa. So that's my choice. What are your thoughts, chaps?
I'm not far away from that, so I didn't go D line, but as I said at the start, I've actually got 4 players listed down here. So I've got my pick at 31, and I've got 3 other players who I'd pick if that first pick isn't there.
My theory, Lee, was we have to go D line because the D line, especially with the loss of Armstead, especially with the loss of Chase Young, I think it's our biggest need. We need to bolster that D line. So let's use our highest pick to sort that out. That was my theory. That was my tactic. But I'm no John Lynch.
No, so I'd probably agree with you there, Eric. So the way I normally approach the draft is I have a look at next year and see who's going to be a free agent. And when you have a look at our free agents next year, our cornerback room is going to be absolutely devastated. Pretty much everybody who's worth anything is going to be a free agent next year. So because of the number of gaps we're going to have next year, I've ranked cornerback as our number 1 need. But as I said, defensive line, I think it's the weakest one we've had for a few years now. They've brought in Collins, they've brought in Leonard Floyd. I like both of those signings. I think both could be good signings. We've obviously got Drake Jackson, who really needs to step up. Robert Beal Jr., we didn't really see much of him last year. He could be a slow burner. He could turn out to be the person that we need him to be coming into this season. So I don't think it's a burning need for round 1. Having said that, I do have a defensive lineman as one of my backup picks. So my number 1 pick, my number 31 in the first round, if he's available, if he's still there, Kool-Aid McKinstry at cornerback. I know it's not a need for this season. It's definitely a need for next season. We can't bring all of our cornerbacks in through free agency because it'll just cost far too much. We need to get a stud in the draft who's going to cost us essentially peanuts for the first 4 years. So that's why I've gone for Kool-Aid McKinstry. But the defensive lineman I would have went for is Robinson, but not Chop. It's Darius Robinson.
You're stealing thunder. He's back, everyone, and look what he does. However,
a quick one on Kool-Aid, though. Kool-Aid has met with the 49ers. So you never know, Mr. Gowland.
Again, smoke and mirrors. The meet with all the top prospects.
So he has an absence. He goes missing for a couple of weeks and he goes straight down a rabbit hole. However, I will say, Lee, the other position of need on my notepad was cornerback. another spot we don't usually use early draft capital on, but we haven't used a first round pick on a cornerback since 2002 when we selected Mike Rumph with the number 27th pick. Now, Kool-Aid McKinstry is the one that I always grab when we do the mock drafts. And like you, I've come prepared with a couple. But he stole my thunder, Eric, because I was going to be boring. And my speech was death, taxes, and the 49ers using their top first round pick on a defensive lineman. It's happened 3 times under Lynch and Shanahan. And go on, Lee, you can say the name better than me. He plays for Missouri. It is at pick 31, not Chop Robinson.
It's Darius Robinson. Now, I mean, I can well see that happening, because if we've got 2 edge players, 2 quality edge players, then it makes it so much easier for the internal defensive lineman to play. Plus, obviously, like I said, this year cornerback is not going to be an issue, but it's going to be a major issue next year. It could be that this year coming up is potentially the closing of our Super Bowl window for the next 2 to 3 years while we restock. So it wouldn't surprise us if we went defensive lineman.
So that's pick 31. What we'll do...
Oh, well, so I did say I had 3 backups there. So I've got 2 of the backups. So if Kool-Aid McKinstry isn't there, Darius Robinson was actually my 3rd. So there's 2 players. They both play exactly the same position. One of them is Jackson Powers Johnson, who is unfortunately from Oregon. Hopefully Najee's not watching this, otherwise I'll never live it down. And the other one is Zach Frazier. I think they both can play multiple positions. Both can play centre and guard. Both are very athletic. I think Jackson Powers Johnson, we haven't had a top-rated centre since Goodwin back in 2012. And I think that would make a hell of a difference. Sorry, we had Alex Mack for 1 year, didn't we? In 1 year only. But I think it would make a huge difference to have a stud at centre, because they are effectively the quarterback of the offensive line.
I had a similar thought along the backups, and I had JC Latham, but I think it's unlikely he's going to fall that far. But if he does, that was good. He did fall in one of my mock drafts. Again, these mock draft simulators aren't the most, and it's the same. We had a comment around Chop that I picked. It's not guaranteed he's going to fall that far, but JC Latham of Alabama, he would be another stud in the offensive line. But I think there's been a lot of talk about the O-line. I still think the D-line is the bigger need at this point. We've got all the O-linemen coming back that were there last year.
So I'm glad Keitha has joined, because he put a post in the Facebook group either this morning or yesterday, and he was asking about draft need. And I was like, Keitha, that is the topic of today's show. So I couldn't respond, but it's good to see him in the house. He says we need a cornerback or the offensive line. I think the offensive line seems to be a popular choice among the fans, but I can't see us picking one with pick 31. But I like how Lee has got a couple of options. So what I was going to do was kind of get us to narrow down to one choice, but I'm conscious we've got 10 picks to go through. So the next pick, get me a little notepad, is round 2, pick 63. And I'm going to go to Lee first and put him on the spot, Eric. So who've you got, Lee? The Niners taking at pick 63.
So because I went cornerback with the first round pick with Kool-Aid McKinstry, the second round I definitely went offensive line. And I've gone with Kieran Amagaji, offensive tackle. Again, he's one of these players who is incredibly athletic. He's built for the run game. Not that we particularly run heavy now. We actually pass more than what we run now. But his pass protection is very good as well. And again, for round 2, I do have a backup, but I'll let you guys go first.
So, Eric, I'm going to jump in now because I've been practicing this name. It's one Lee wasn't expecting me to take. So I think we go offensive tackle, and we go for Kingsley Suamatia, BYU. Now, that's easy for me to say, Lee, and I've been practicing that for quite some time. But like you, I had the strategy.
You did well.
Given where I went for pick 31, the stuff I've seen about this kid, the stuff I've seen in Chapman's draft guide, that's where I would go. So over to you on that, Eric. Who are you going for your next pick?
Yeah, I'm a big outlier here, but I've actually kind of gone in the second round where Lee was heading in the first round. So I've gone for Javon Bullard, who's a safety out of Georgia, but he can play both safety positions and the nickel position. So again, I think our secondary is needing some bolstering there, especially looking forward. And so I went for Javon Bullard. He's only 5'10", but he has got quite good stats in terms of athletics. And Mr. Chapman's got him rated as a 10 out of 10 fit for the 49ers. So that's why I went with Jawan Bullard.
I like it. So 49ers forever. 49ers faithful forever, sorry. Says wide receiver could be a sneaky pick at 31.
Yeah, so I'd be interested if they're thinking Lad McConkey.
Yeah, I've seen that name. I mean, was it Lombardi or Mallorca? One of them predicted, or Peter Schrager has predicted that as pick 31. So
yeah,
be interesting to see. Slightly more connected than what we are. That we're just across the pond. So we're moving on to round 3, pick 94. Now I'm going to go first this time.
Hang on, Paul. 2 seconds. 2 seconds. Let me get this back up from pick 2 out. So I did go with Kieran Amagaji, offensive tackle at 63. However, I did have a backup there, and the backup was wide receiver, and it's Malachi Corley, who was supposed to be built a lot like Deebo Samuel, runs like Deebo Samuel, gets a lot of yards after the catch. I don't particularly think he's going to be there at 63. I think he's going to go in the late 40s, early 50s. So I think if he does drop to 63, then there's going to be some tough decisions to be made. Although it might not be tough because we definitely need an offensive lineman. Not necessarily tackle. I think it's interior that we need, but there's going to be some hard decisions to make.
See, I've got my post-it note. There's a strategy up here. So that wide receiver was one I looked at, but because I may have taken one in a later round. So I'm taking a cornerback at pick 94, Jarvis Bromley Jr. from Louisville. He's not exceptional size. His speed isn't the greatest, but when I've watched the game tape, he's feisty, physical, and he's comfortable in the press coverage. And I think he has the tools to be a nickel cornerback. And I think that is definitely a position of need. All the content creators that I'm watching, all the shows that I've seen, nickel seems to be an area of need. So that's where I'm going. So I'll hand over to Eric before Lee gives his thoughts on that. So who have you got at pick 94 on your draft board?
Pick 94, it's time to replace Arik Armstead. So I've gone with Tavondre Sweat. Now, if you listen to Tavondre Sweat, unanimous All-American, Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. His brother plays in the Eagles, which is a shame, but we will forgive him for that. Just collapses the pocket consistently. Centers can never stop him. Insane feet for a 360-pound guy. He's going to be that solid player in the middle of that D-line to be a disruptor, to allow those edge players to get to the quarterback. Tavondre Sweat, pick 94.
So, Eric, I completely agree, and I've gone for Tavondre Sweat as well. Defensive tackle at 94. I think that is an absolute belter of a pick. The Brownlee Jr. one, so that's an interesting pick. So when you have a look at all the different big boards, all the different mocks, he's all over the place. I've seen him taken as early as 58. I've seen him taken as late as 138. Nobody can really get a grip of where the value of him, what sort of value he brings. So to pick him up at 94 is pretty much middle of the pack there, so that might work. As I've said, I've gone Tavondre Sweat, and again, the first 3 rounds I always had backups there just in case my pick wasn't there. If Tavondre Sweat isn't there and Ben Sinnott is tight end, I would like us to take Sinnott, because at the moment the tight ends are looking fairly woeful. Cameron Latu, Brendan Wills, they didn't really set the world on fire last year. Obviously Latu was on IR for all the season, for pretty much all the season anyway. Sinnott looks as though he could be the type of tight end that George Kittle is, and I think that's kind of what we need, somebody who can rise to George Kittle's level on the opposite side of him when we play 2 tight end sets. But hopefully Tavondre Sweat is there, because definitely this is where I think we need to start adding depth to the defensive line.
So Justin has put there, is Sweat going to make it that far? He doubts it. Now, for context...
Yeah, I doubt it as well, to be fair.
He's put there, 49ers faithful forever, has put that Sweat was considered a first-round pick pre-combine, fell down the boards. Now, I got invited, Lee, to be the 49ers on the good teams win, great teams cover, and all I had to do was pick 31. And I got the other team's 30 picks, and I was really surprised at some of the players left on the board. A lot of teams had taken quarterbacks. Now, we have gone into this exercise we've done the 14,605 mock drafts. We've looked at the draft guides, but these are the players that we would like to take. But understandably, some might have gone. We don't know how the moves are going to go. But it's interesting that we didn't consult, we didn't send each other our list, and already used to have got a similar thought process. So I like that. So who wants to go next? Because we're at round 4?
Just a quick one on the whole quarterback thing, because there's a lot of quarterbacks projected to go in the first round. Since we took Brock Purdy, have you changed the way you reevaluate quarterbacks going into the draft as a first round quarterback? Because I know my thought process is now every time I go on, I have a look to see how many games they've actually played. Obviously, we kind of whiffed on Trey Lance. He hadn't played many games and it kind of showed. Brock Purdy, I think he had 34, 35 games in college, and it showed his experience. He knew exactly what he was doing. He could read a defense very quickly for a rookie when he first came in. And to me, I start looking at that. And when I have a look at the quarterbacks that are potentially going in the first round, other than Caleb Williams, I'm not entirely sure I would actually take any of them in the first round.
Yeah, I'm similar to Eric. I don't watch a lot of college football. If you had Trey Lance on your bingo card, please mark off 26 minutes because we did get that far in. We all fell for the hype. We all wanted that kid to work out. But I think you have to, Lee. You know, Mr. Irrelevant comes in, pick 262, and he's just shown that we're talking about, as I said at the start, 256 players have been evaluated. They're going into the draft process. But it's a bit like the draft day movie. You either love it or you hate it. I think it's great. Hence the pancake eating mother trucker. You just don't know how it's going to go on the night. One team whiffs on one player, then he starts falling down the board. And the only thing that I was surprised at, Jason Aponte was on with Rob Stats Guerrera, and they were saying that less and less players are going to the actual draft. I think there's about 10 or 15 players possibly there this year. And they reckon that number might fall even more. And I suppose for us in the UK, you're used to seeing all of the top 100 players there and, you know, the cameras spinning to them and who's getting picked. But this one caught my eye, Lee. Tabor Pepper. No, we cannot be working out a long snapper.
Yeah, again, I think that's smoke and mirrors. I think
We
it's
love
smoke and
Tabor
mirrors. I think
Pepper.
Tabor Pepper, yeah, I think he's a lock there.
So,
Yeah.
Eric, we're on round 4, pick
Yeah.
124. Who are you
Yeah.
going for, buddy?
I wanted to go next because it seems like I'm following Lee just a round later. So, round 4, pick 124. I went Cade Stover, tight end out of Ohio State. The good after the catch, etc., etc. So Lee was talking about tight end. I've gone for a tight end at pick 124, Cade Stover. It seems like we're great minds, Lee. I'm just a little bit slower than you are.
So go on, Lee. Are you on the same page or have you got a different pick?
No, so I've got different picks. So this is where I've gone wide receiver. And it'll come as no surprise that the wide receiver I've gone for is Brendan Rice. And again, Brendan Rice is another one where I've seen him taken as low as 98. I've seen him taken as late as 142. So I'm not quite sure where he's going to be taken. I played safe and went halfway in between that, which was 124, fortunately. So that's what I've gone for, Brendan Rice.
So for me, I've gone a bit boring. I think everyone was expecting me to come in and be like Brendan Rice, Frank Gore Jr., Luke McCaffrey, but I believe this pick at 124 represents good value. Zach Winter, guard from Michigan. Many projected him as Zach Zinter, projected him as a second-round pick before he broke his fibia and tibia late in 2023 against Ohio State. But I think the 4th round gives us good value, chaps, for a dependable guard. Both of our projected starters at that position, Banks and Feliciano, are under contract through 2024. He's trained at centre, and I think that versatility across that line, it's a bit of a low-risk, high-reward pick for me. It's not as sexy as some people would think, and it's not as easy for me to say. So, Zach Zinter, I apologise for getting your name wrong, but that is who I would take next. See, and 49ers, Purple Forever agrees. So I like that. And Justin has put, please do not put Rice on the Niners. That's too much pressure on that young man. So, I was going to say, Lee, you told me at this point that we had an announcement of our own.
No, the next point. So the next one. So this pick 132 is the 5th pick. So that's halfway through.
Right. So who wants to go first, Eric or Lee? What do we reckon?
I think you should let Eric go again, because I'm very interested to see where Eric's going with this one.
Let's see if I'm not behind you this time. Lee.
I don't know why. I've just got this good feeling that he's going to go for exactly the same players what I'm going for.
Erik Orrgárde is on the clock. Who are
So
you
much
taking?
pressure. I've gone Cedric Van Pran, centre out of Georgia. So bolstering that O-line. 22 years old, strong player, great with his hands. No snap count issues, gets good movement in run game. I mean, that sounds like a perfect 49ers fit, right? So yeah, Cedric Van Pran, that's who I went for.
See, I was almost right. We've gone for the same position. Not the same player, but the same position. So
Okay.
I've actually gone for Tanner Bortolini at 132 because, again, he's versatile. He doesn't just play centre, and he's athletic. In fact, I think he's the most athletic centre or the most athletic interior lineman in the whole draft. So I think picking him up at 132. John Lynch kind of, he hinted about this, that there's a lot of good interior linemen in the first few rounds. And I think Tanner Bortolini is one of them.
So, again, pick what we're on now, round 4, pick 132. So I've gone for offensive line again. I've gone for Caden Wallace from Penn State. The Niners have sent a lot of scouts through Penn State over recent years. He saw plenty of guard reps during practice, possibly could move around. Again, it's not a sexy pick, but looking at the 4th round and some of the players available, I didn't want to go down the Brendan Rice, but we have got one more pick left in round 4. But
Well,
this is
I was just going to say, Paul, is this the first round where we've all picked the same position?
I believe so. Well, before, because we're going to take a little bit of a time out. So what
Let's
we're
do
going to do, chaps, the Would You Rather is going to be an interactive one. So after the show, I'm going to get you both to send me your draft board, and then we'll put it out on Twitter, and we'll ask the faithful, would you rather mine, Lee's, or Eric's? And I thought it's a good way to get the interactive feel. But Lee, you weren't here last week, buddy. And we had Crystal Secure on the show, and she dropped some huge breaking news. Now, you know what we're like on the 49er Faithful UK. We like to put a good show on, and I thought, what can we do this week? And lo and behold, we have our own breaking news to share with you all. I am excited to announce that we've agreed a partnership with Power Brand Systems. Now, what does that mean, I hear you ask? Well, Lee, what does this mean?
So Power Brand Systems are a company based over in LA, and they provide a CRM system, a customer relationship management system. It's very good for small and medium sized enterprises. It's very good for us as well. So in this partnership, we get to use the social media management element of this, which means we can centralize all of our social media posts. We only need to go to one place, and then it goes out to each different platform we have, which makes it a lot easier for us. And it also allows us to track trends on there as well. What we'll do, because it's a break now, we will play the video to show you what Power Brand Systems is. If anybody works in business or knows somebody who's looking for a CRM system, by all means point them in the direction of the affiliate link in the description to this video. This is Power Brand Systems.
Ready to generate more leads from your website, Google, and your social channels without having to spend money on ads? Our platform provides you with an easy-to-use communication stream that sucks in free leads from your website, Google, Facebook, and Instagram, enabling you to reply and convert them into customers from your computer or from our mobile app. We'll even turn your inbound calls into text message conversations, so you'll never miss another lead again. Once you've converted a satisfied customer, you can shoot them a Google review request with a click of a button, which will explode your positive reviews and increase your position in search engines. The system will also pull new reviews from Google and Facebook right into your conversation stream, where you can read and reply. Jumpstart your business by getting started today.
So that's Power Brand Systems, and we are quite excited about this. Hopefully it's going to help us grow the channel, grow the fan base, because essentially that's what we're trying to do anyway. We're trying to help the 49ers grow the fan base, especially in the UK and throughout the world, to be honest. So yeah, that is Power Brand Systems. Back over to you, Paul.
Justin, I won't repeat the first bit. I like to be family friendly, but the UK has gone commercial and sold out, and Red Jet Shell has put awesome. Now, before we get back to business, at this point, we do thank everybody who watches, who likes, who subscribes, who comments, who shows us the love. As Lee said, we are trying to build our own community on this side of the pond. But back to business, chaps. Now, this is where my post-it note comes in. So as I said, I'm a big fan of draft day. The next pick we're taking, the camera probably won't pick it up, Luke McCaffrey, no matter what. QB turned wide receiver. Let's face it, never underestimate Kyle Shanahan's fondness for all things McCaffrey. Just think of it this way, chaps. I can see the trick play now. Brock to McCaffrey, McCaffrey to McCaffrey. The UK faithful goes crazy at one of our watch parties. On that note alone, I'm sold. So pick 135. We are taking Luke McCaffrey, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, interesting one. I mean, it's a fair shout. Obviously, I've gone with Brendan Rice. You've gone with McCaffrey. It was bound to happen that I think all three of us, somewhere along the lines, I'm anticipating that between now and the end of the 7th round, that Eric's going to pick one of the family-related players on there.
Well,
don't know which one. Don't know which one, but I think he will.
You say that, Lee. My pick 135 was Brendan Rice. He fell that far in my draft, so you already picked him. So I think perhaps a little bit low. He fell a little bit far in my draft, but at 135, he was there. I couldn't resist Brendan Rice. And actually, at 176, Luke McCaffrey was still available, but I did pick Brendan Rice, so I didn't pick McCaffrey. But you got it bang on the money, Lee, as always.
When I did a mock draft the other day, Lee, I did take McCaffrey. I took Rice. I took Gore. Right. And when the grade at the end, it was like, yeah, you're clearly a legacy fan.
So I was going to say, I wouldn't put anything into the grading on these because the grading is just terrible. We've seen that. It's exactly the same as some of the GMs who go out and pick players. It's a lottery. It's a lottery who you get that's going to be good. So with pick 135, I've actually gone with my second cornerback of the draft. And again, it's a player who I don't think there's any proper consensus on where he's going to be picked. It swings so widely, it's unbelievable. So some people have him going at the back end of the 2nd round. Some people have him going in the 5th and 6th round. And I just can't get a handle on where he should be. But for me, if he's at 135, I'm taking DJ James.
Nice. I like
and
it.
Like I said, stocking up on cornerbacks ready for next season when we lose most of them.
Yeah, I mean, we've said cornerback is a position of need. Like you said, I can't get away from Kool-Aid McKinstry at pick 31, but like you said, as you go later down the draft. So I went first with my Luke McCaffrey. We're now at round 5, pick 176.
Can I go first? Because yet again, I'm a round behind the Gowland.
Well, just hold that thought, Eric, because round 5 is normally Lee's favourite pick in the draft. So I like that you've stole his thunder because he normally does that to the both of us. So go on, Eric. Steal his thunder, buddy.
No, I'm not stealing his thunder. I'm saying I'm a round behind. So pick 176. I went cornerback. And I went Jarian Jones, cornerback out of Florida State. He's a nickel, but he's got some proper speed and he likes contact. So again, that to me sounds like a proper 49er. And it just seems like definitely. I'm just one round behind you, Lee, the whole time.
Well, that's why we don't share our big boards, Eric, because I kind of wanted this to be authentic. I wanted us to come on tonight, and it would have been quite funny. I mean, we do prep for the pods, but sometimes me, Lee, Gareth,
you
and
might.
But there's sometimes you think, are you looking at my notes here? Like there, you like pick 31. You were like Kool-Aid McKinstry, cornerback, and I had a whole section about cornerback, which was just in the bin because you'd already mentioned it.
To be honest, I think that talks more to the fact that we all realise exactly what the 49er needs are and where the value is in the draft as well.
See, I had to put my Kyle Shanahan hat on for this round. I thought, I've done a draft and I haven't taken a running back. So this pick, and again, I'm trying to get the names right. Lee's chuckling here. So I'm going running back from Louisville, Isaac Guerrero. When I've done my deep dive, Lee, he's a little bit like Raheem Mostert. He's 221 pounds. He can run a 4:38 second 40. He was even faster at 4:33 at the combine. And I just think Kyle Shanahan, that's kind of at this late pick. I think Shanahan might just take him. There's question marks over Mitchell. Mason hasn't had his chance to shy. So, bringing this kid in, low risk, high reward seems to be my mantra. So that's who I would go for at pick 176.
What I really like, Paul, out of that one is that his comparison in the Chapman draft book is Joe Mixon, and that is something a little bit different, which is pretty cool. So I'm liking that one.
Well, I said use your homework. I mean, I was at lunchtime today in the office in Darlington with my blue folder, my notepad, and people were like, "What are you doing, Paul?" I was like, "Oh, the NFL draft's on tomorrow." And they were like, "What does that mean?" I was like, "Watch the show at 8:00 tonight and you'll find out." So we're heading on to round 6 now, Lee. So we're at pick 211.
So I haven't done 176 yet. I haven't picked my guy in the 5th round. No, you're jumping ahead, you see.
I'm jumping ahead. Sorry, buddy.
Yeah, so I was actually trying to have a look for the comments. Somebody mentioned about us losing pretty much all of our DB room, not just cornerback room. And with the 5th round pick at 176, I've actually gone safety. And I've gone for James Williams. And again, it's jumping around with value. He's been picked a lot earlier than that. He's been picked incredibly later than that. 216, 217. I think 176, looking at the consensus, is probably where he's going to go, around about then. He might be on before then, but if he's there, James Williams.
Yeah, I was looking for that comment. So, again, like you said, Lee, we tend to be, what I do like, we have seemed to have approached this with, right, what do the Niners need? You look at the draft board. And like we said at the start, all this could go out the window because we could wake up to the news tomorrow that the Niners have packaged together all the later round picks and we've jumped up in the board. But so we're at round 6 to 11 because I didn't let you make your pick. You can go first, Lee, as a way of an apology from me.
Okay, so I think I replied to one of John Chapman's tweets to say I don't honestly see us making 10 picks this year. I think John Lynch is going to move around the board. I think maximum we make is 8 picks. And 2 of the picks that I've got us given away is 211 and 251. But I have still made that pick. So for 211, I've actually gone for a tight end, Tip Ryman. I think he might fit in okay. I'd rather have Ben Sinnott, but you can't have all the good players. So obviously I went with Tavondre Sweat in the 3rd round. So in the 6th, I'm going Tip Ryman.
What about you, Eric? Who are you going at this pick 211, round 6?
Well, I think this late on in round 6, you're looking for upside, right? And you're looking for those potentials. So even if they're not ideal in terms of the draft guides, etc., you're looking for those players that might be freakishly athletic and they have some upside. So I went offensive tackle, Caden Wallace from Penn State. So 2023 All Big Ten honorable mention, 40 career starts at right tackle. Has got some, it says ideal body but lazy habits. So again, looking for that upside. So I went O-line again to try and bolster that one. Gets a bit younger there.
So at this pick, Lee, this is where I channeled my inner Gowland. I'm torn between 2. So I was looking at a tight end because I hadn't drafted one so far. I was looking at a safety. Now, the tight end I was looking at was Eric All from Iowa. But all 49ers fans will be cringing because he tore his ACL in October and Trent Baalke isn't our general manager anymore because we used to think, torn ACL, sold. So I thought, right, Paul, you can't make the connection to George Kittle yet. He's got an injury. So I've gone for a safety. So I've gone for Sione Vake from Utah. I just think this kid's a good football player. He's played both safety and running back in college. His speed isn't going to blow anyone away, but he's got instincts on tape. And the last kid that we took a chance with these instincts on tape turned out all right in Hufanga. So, like you said, Eric, high upside. I've stayed away from the injury concerns with my tight end, and I've drafted a safety at this point. And I've stunned you both to silence. Yes.
No. But you have actually. You've stunned us with the name because I didn't think you'd go for any players with a name that you had to work on pronouncing.
To be honest, buddy, that was my draft strategy on Monday. And then I thought, come on, Paul. You know, the more I read this draft guide from Chapman, the more I was on social media. And I thought, Martin Hughes wanted us to draft a player a couple of years ago whose name I would have butchered on social media. Isn't that right, Lee?
Oh, well, which one is it? Are you talking about the tight end?
I'm talking about the player who has the same name as a German international footballer back in the day.
Zach Kuntz. Yeah,
Easy for you to say, buddy.
That. Yeah, I'd have loved that.
The
The podcast would have been so entertaining from that moment onwards.
It would have been. So I'm quite happy at the pace that we're going through here. So round 6, we've still got another pick. 2:15. So Eric, I'm going to swing back to you to see whether you and Lee are in sync. So who are you taking with this pick, buddy, at pick 2:15?
2:15, I've gone linebacker. So I've gone Tyron Hopper from Missouri. Disciplined, fundamental backside linebacker. Always is where he needs to be, rounds well with tight ends. So I've gone for linebacker, pick 215.
What about you, Lee? Same as Eric?
You know, in my list of needs, I did have linebacker on there. But then I looked throughout the rest of the team and I thought it's probably one of the lesser needs. I know it's going to be a need probably next season, but not as much as some other areas. Having said that, I've gone with a position which I don't think is a need at all. It's a bit of a luxury pick. And again, I've fallen down that trap of going for a family member, and I'm going for Frank Gore Jr. Yeah, because if he's anything like his dad, the one quality you must have in the NFL is reliability, to be able to play week in, week out. If he's as tough as his dad, that's great. Get him on there. And again, I think he's a change of pace to what we have, because he is built like his dad. He is a stocky runner. And I think that would be quite a pick to have. And to be honest, if I was having to choose between Frank Gore Jr. and Brendan Rice, I'd probably go, as far as the family connection is concerned, I'd probably go Frank Gore Jr.
See, that's when I was putting this draft together. I thought, I can't take all three. So I fell in love with McCaffrey. But it's as Niners fans, one of our biggest fears is Rice and Gore going somewhere else and lighting up the NFL and that whole what if, I suppose. So now it's interesting, the strategy that we all use when you get to these later rounds. So we're still in round 6, Eric. Yeah, we're in round 6.
I'm still in round 6.
I picked 215, didn't I, already?
Yeah.
My linebacker. Yeah.
So I, on this one, have gone for a cornerback. Now, you mentioned it earlier, Lee. It's a position of need. The top 4 we've got Ward, Lenore, Isaac Yeardum, and Rock Yasin are all under contract through 2024. So I think we need to get younger at this position. I think we need to bring some players in who may have to sit. So I've gone for Chaw Smith-Wade from Washington State. I think that he's broke up 21 passes in college, and he might be able to move inside and beef up that cornerback slot for me. So that's where I went anyway. Again, not a sexy pick. You've took Frank Gore Jr., but that means we're heading into round 7. We only have one pick left, gentlemen. So who wants to go first in round 7?
I'll let Eric go first.
Yeah, I'm happy to go first. I didn't go for anything super exciting, but again, just because I hadn't drafted one, I went running back. And I actually had Frank Gore Jr. as being an undrafted free agent. So I didn't draft Frank Gore Jr. based off that. I think he might be an undrafted free agent. So I went for Corey Schrader from Missouri. So he's an experienced zone runner and nice hands, apparently. Didn't test that well, but high upside. Tough running back that can do a little bit of everything. So I went for Corey Schrader.
Go on then, Lee. Who's your last pick on your big board?
So again, I mean, the last pick is a pick that I actually expect us to trade away to move up slightly as we move around the board. And I don't think very many people would have expected this position, but I'm actually going to go for a quarterback at this position in the hope that we do unearth another diamond in the rough. And I'm going for Sam Hartman from Notre Dame.
Well, Eric, no surprise. Me and El Presidente are on the same page when it comes to position. So I've channeled my inner Brock Purdy, Lee, and I have also taken a quarterback. But I've gone for Devin Leary from Kentucky. I still think there's room for one more quarterback on this 90-man roster. And like you, I think we may not take all these picks, but for this exercise, I thought, when was the last time we took a gamble on a quarterback in round 7? Then I remembered you were in Vegas when it happened. And if it works out as good as that, then we'll be all right. So that, gentlemen, concludes our draft. Now, we're not finishing the show just yet.
No, I had a question for you. It's like, because I know you had your note there, Paul.
Yep.
I was curious for El Presidente, out of all your picks, who is the one pick you really want us to pick? If you were John Lynch, who is the one player out of all your choices that you go, yeah, I really wish we could have him?
He's not going to be there. He's not going to be there because he's going in the first round. He's going in the middle of the teens, and I mentioned him at the start. If Byron Murphy is there, if there's any way we can get Byron Murphy, I think that restores our defensive line to the best it's ever been. But he's not going to be there. And I don't think we'd trade up to take defensive lineman. I think potentially we'd trade up to take an offensive lineman. But again, I think those are going to come off the board quite quickly as well. It's hard to tell this year because the draft's going to be really strong with wide receivers. It's a really strong class. So you're going to have quality littered throughout the first 2 or 3 rounds. I mean, maybe it's even the 4th round there. So Byron Murphy's one of them. The one out of the ones I've picked is probably DJ James, because I think he looks such a quality cornerback. And if we can get him in like the 4th round, I think that would be a value pick.
Proper value, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. Mine really, because again, like I said at the start, I really based my choices on reading the guidebook, and the one that I just kept coming back to and looking at was Brendan Rice. He really, like, the report really reads excellent. I don't know if it's biased because of the history, but it'd be so gutting if he went somewhere else and just absolutely lit the league up. So Brendan Rice was the one for me.
Especially if he goes in division.
Oh, could you imagine if he went and played for the Rams? That'd just be horrible.
Exactly.
Oh,
exactly.
Interesting you say that, because on Chapman's guide, he has his 10 that he wants, and Rice isn't on there. And what I'm chuckling at, Lee, Eric, that is where I was going next. I was going to ask you both to pick one player. So Eric has stepped in to help me out the last few weeks. He's got a feel. At the start of the show, I called you Mr. Relevant, buddy, and it was for a reason. And this is what we do on the Wednesday show. Lee was hoping for a 2-hour show. We're not going to quite stretch to 2 hours, but we're not finished just yet, because you've mentioned there, Lee, that you feel like this class heavy wide receivers. Yeah. Now, a lot of the people watching, and we've talked about the need at cornerback, but a lot of the analysts don't see any corners as a sure top 10 pick. And like you said, I think we'll see a run on the quarterbacks, because that's what tends to happen. It tends to happen when I play fantasy football. So I want Luke McCaffrey, Eric, but if Kool-Aid McKinstry's at 31, I really, really would like us to take that pick. And it would be something out of the ordinary for our 49ers. What would you think on that if we took Kool-Aid, Lee? Would you be happy at that 31?
I'd be happy. I'd be happy, but we wouldn't see the value the first year, because obviously we've already got good cornerbacks. It's next year where we see the value. And if we are picking for value this year, we really need to do something about the offensive line, the interior. I know all season people have talked about Colton McKivitz. We need another tackle. I think that's a lazy narrative based off that very first game that he played for us in the regular season, where he got absolutely blown up, play after play after play, and he looked dire. But as the season went on, I think he progressed to a serviceable level. And bear in mind, this was his first season playing tackle. He normally plays guard. So I think he will improve. But I definitely think we need a backup or somebody to take the pressure off Aaron Banks, because Aaron Banks didn't have a particularly good season last year. He didn't play anywhere near as good as the season before, and Spencer Burford was woeful. I mean, you saw in the Super Bowl on that bust play on 3rd down, it's because Spencer Burford went the wrong way. Had we had John Feliciano in there, we may have gotten the touchdown there. But I'd like to see us do the interior offensive line. I really wish we could get a centre who we look at and think he's going to be a centre for the 49ers for the next 10 years, because I think it's such an important position on offensive line, and we just kind of keep on putting bit part players in there. move them
Yeah.
from guard and stick them in centre. And I think we really need somebody who knows the centre position really well, who can read the defence and who can help the other linemen out. Which is why my backups was Jackson Power Johnson and Zach Fraser. And like I said, I went with Tanner Bartolini in the fourth, who I think would be an incredible value pick for a centre in the fourth. I think he's underestimated, underrated, and I like everything I see about him. I thought you were going to go in a different direction there, Paul. I thought you were going to ask us which player in the whole draft do you not want to see on arrival? Because I was just about to say Malachi Corley. I don't want to see him on the Rams because Puka Nakua has turned into gold dust. He was excellent last season. And if they pick up Malachi Corley, and he does turn out to be a lot like Deebo Samuel, then the Rams are going to become an issue through the year.
I was going to go down that route, but we're joined by Ty Alston. So before I read his comment out, he's put, "What's up, faithful?" He apologises. You never need to apologise to the 49er faithful UK. We're just glad to see people tuning in. But he says that the O-line is very overblown, where he agrees we could use an upgrade. It's not as dire as people say. And what I was going to say, Lee, before we went down to that segue, a lot of people want offensive line. A lot of people want cornerback. The two positions that Kyle Shanahan doesn't value. For whatever reason, I love Kyle Shanahan. I love what John Lynch does. But if you go back and look, they're the two positions. The offensive line, I think he thinks his scheme can trump all, and he doesn't like to spend the draft capital or the free agency money on there. But I'm not disagreeing with you. You want a good offensive line to protect Brock Purdy.
So what I would say there is, I think you're right in what you've said. But if we take Kool-Aid McKinstry in the first round, I can definitely see him starting opposite Mooney Ward and Diamondor Lenore sliding inside to the nickel spot. If we have those three playing in those positions, then the lack of depth at defensive line, which I mentioned earlier on in the show, that's helped out by that because the coverage will be so good, it'll give the defensive line that additional time to get the sacks and to get the pressure through there. So it's kind of doing the opposite thing to what we've done in the past, where we've overstocked the defensive line to help out the cornerbacks because the cornerbacks are being weak and they haven't been able to cover for that long. It's doing the opposite thing there, and like I said, the only defensive lineman in the first round, the only interior defensive lineman, I would have a first round pick for is Byron Murphy. He's going to be out of sight before we get there. He's going to be gone. So I think it makes sense to bring in Kool-Aid McKinstry and shore up that cornerback room.
See, where I was going and where I agree with you, Lane, I'm smirking. While Kyle Shanahan might not value all those positions, Brandon Staley definitely values the cornerback. And that's where I think maybe he has some input. He's come across, he's in that draft room. Kool-Aid McKinstry's at 31. Maybe he gets given his choice. But David reckons our biggest three needs are interior, offensive line, cornerback, and D-line.
Yeah.
Put there plenty of draft capital. For me...
My whole... Go ahead, Paul.
No, go on. Sorry, buddy.
I was just going to say, my whole thing is I'm really conscious of replacing Eric Armstead. And I know he didn't play all of the games, but I think we really need to have a good replacement. We've got Floyd in on the edge. So I know I picked an edge player who might not drop that far in Chop Robinson in my first round, but T'Vondre Sweat, if we could pick him up at some stage to be that Armstead replacement. Now, a little bit wary of drafting D linemen like Kinlaw, for example. Didn't quite work out in the end as much as we'd hoped. But I do think we need to have that solid D lineman. That's the one thing for me. I just think it's easy to underestimate the contributions that Eric Armstead made.
Yeah, I was just about to say the same thing about Kinlaw, to be honest. Last season, Kinlaw played excellent. He was underrated, underappreciated. His first 3 seasons were all injury ravaging, which is why he looks as though he's been a bust. He hasn't really. If he hadn't had those injuries, I think we'd have had a first round value out of him.
Yeah, it's just really bad luck on that one. It's a shame because when we all picked Kinlaw, we thought this is a player. And summer last season, he actually showed that. And it was just a shame that I think because of the injuries and because of the first 3 seasons, we couldn't renew him. It was just going to cost too much money and too much of a risk.
So I want you to answer Lee's question. That's where I was going. Who do you not want to see tearing it up in the NFL? You've done your deep dive. You've read Chapman's Guide. You fell in love with some of these college footballs. Like me, Eric, we're not emotionally involved in these players. I already hear Gowland and Carra arguing over Stanford, Oregon. And that's the beauty when you don't watch college football. You're not emotionally invested in these players. So to see someone you've followed through college suddenly tearing it up for the Seahawks or for the Rams. So on your draft board, Eric, or anyone that you've kind of thought about taking, who is the one that you don't want to see go to a rival and be good?
I actually thought about this today because for the first season in a very long time, we are not going to see Aaron Donald on the opposition. And I know that we've had a pretty decent record against Aaron Donald. But when I was looking through, the Rams have got pick 19, and I was looking at Byron Murphy, to Lee's point, and I was going, for goodness sake, if we've just got rid of Aaron Donald, I do not want him to be the one that really blows up the league and kind of takes over that spot. That would be really painful. So, yeah, Lee kind of stole my thunder a little bit, but he didn't know. But I think if he falls that far, he might go a bit higher yet. He could go in the teens. But Byron Murphy at 19 to the Rams, for me, would be a disaster if he then turns out to be really good. So you're smiling, Lee. What do you think?
No. So yeah. I mean, I almost made exactly the same decision as which player do you not want to go to a rival with Murphy. The reason I didn't do that is because at the moment the Rams are terrible on defense, and bringing in Murphy isn't going to fix the holes in their defense straight away. They still need a few drafts to do that. On the other side of the ball, though, they are still quite good, which is why I thought, well, if they get Malachi Corley and he turns out to be a Deebo Samuel, him and Puka Nacua, it's just going to be it's going to make it uncomfortable in some of those games.
So David has joined the chat and he's put Armstead, Farrell and Kinlaw were good run defenders. We haven't signed any run defenders to replace them. It's a big need. So
I thought Collins was a run defender.
Yeah, I think the beauty of where we're getting to now, Lee, is once the draft's done and you've got the 90-man roster, you're going to training camp and you start to see these battles unfold. Just before we move on, Justin, who is one of our favourite followers at the moment, tuning in from the States, he's put, off to work, gentlemen. Enjoy your day. Can't wait to see who was drafted, and he's looking forward to a show before next Wednesday. Now, fingers crossed, we definitely will have a show next Wednesday because I'm going to announce the guest at the end. But possibly, Lee, we might be in a position to jump on. We're not 100% sure yet. Depends, I suppose, on family commitments, work commitments, and all the rest of it.
Yeah. I think we probably will get on before next Wednesday, to be fair. We might even have a podcast out as well.
Yeah, it's worth calling out, Paul, that the comments have been on absolute fire tonight. It's been really good.
Yeah.
Lots of different people on, so really appreciate everyone tuning in.
They've been coming so fast, I haven't been able to keep up with them.
Yeah,
so
amazing.
I'm glad Lee's back tonight, Eric, because my little setup, I don't have a mouse, so I have the little touchpad, and I'm trying to keep up. And like you said, it's a testament to the community that we're growing. When we put this show together, it was always our vision to kind of bring the interactive side, which was different to the pod. Is that right, Lee? Where people could jump in the comments. And so, David, I love the positivity. Keep it coming.
I've got a question for you, Paul. Who did you pick at 215?
At 215, I picked a cornerback, Chow Smith-Wade.
Right, not the one I thought you'd pick then. I have to unlock my browser to get the name again. Actually, I know the name. Josh Wallace from Michigan. Potentially, he's going to go undrafted, and he's somebody, if he does go undrafted, that I'd like to see us pick up. Again, it's just bolstering that cornerback room, which is going to be devastated next season.
So at this point, Eric, what I was going to promote, so the draft is on late for us across the pond.
Or early. Depending on your point of view.
So for me, I'm not staying up on Thursday. I'm going to wake up on Friday, check to see who we've drafted, check to see whether we've traded back. We're not having a live Zoom call on Thursday/Friday. Sarah and Gary will be hosting the live Zoom call on Saturday at 5 p.m. So if you do want to take part in the Saturday Zoom call, do head over to the Facebook page, go to the event page, and we've created a group. You can register for the link. It's always good fun. I don't think anything will quite top when Lee mouthed Mac Jones to the camera and Najee fell for it. That's one of my all-time favourite draft memories. But have you got any plans to stay up, Lee? Are you going to be staying up for the draft?
I'm staying up for the whole thing. Yeah, I'll be up all night. I have created a Teams meeting, but I've also just tapped a new coffee stout barrel of beer in my perfect draft. So I'll find out. I'll see how much I've drank before the draft starts, to whether or not I actually make that meeting live. But there's going to be one in there, and I think it can support up to 300 attendees. So that should be interesting.
Yeah.
So what about you, Eric?
I'm going to try and stay up, I think. I don't know. It's been a really hectic work week for me this week. And I'm also again in London for the 5th day running tomorrow. So it depends on how much energy I've got left. What I might do is actually take a nap and then wake up for it. Because I do really like the experience of watching it live. And you were talking about favourite draft memory. And I know he's here. But Lee, when you picked Mr. Womack, I was living that through every inch of the way. I absolutely loved that. That was magic. Really, really loved that. So fond memories. I even bought a Womack jersey, obviously with the wrong number, 26.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
But that's how much.
And I've never worn me 0.
Yeah, that's how much I enjoyed that memory. You know, it's one of my absolute all-time favorite memories of being part of this group and community. Just seeing you on stage, the fact that you got the Bang Bang Niner gang in there, brilliant.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do like watching it live. It's a good experience.
See, the Womack pick goes down in history, but the actual moment, Sky Sports didn't show it. So I was absolutely raging. We were all primed. Back then I was on heavy pain medication and couldn't move. And then Tracy went to get me a drink and she come back and she was like, why are you muttering at the TV? I was like, Lee, we didn't see the pick. We haven't seen it. So, but I know what you mean. That is the ultimate high, Lee, getting on the stage to announce that pick. So go on, Lee.
So what I'll do, Justin, I'll send the link on in Discord if you want to join, and then we'll see who joins. I know Brett Sinclair's going to be up all night, so that should be interesting. You won't be able to understand a word he says. I mean, my accent's kind of strong. Brett's is just on a whole new level.
Yeah, so I mean, it is an exciting part of the NFL calendar. I do like the draft experience. I don't believe we've got anyone from the group flying out to Detroit. I've seen a couple of the other UK fan groups heading out over there.
So Lawrence Lofts, I mean, he technically is part of the group. He's going to be out there.
Yeah, I saw Lawrence flying out across. Now, before we finish off, Lee, I know you've been away for a couple of weeks, and we had some breaking news. I just wanted to. I've got a little announcement of my own. So you do know, Lee, that I took on far too many fantasy football teams over the last couple of years. So I decided this year to step away. So I didn't apply for the Scott Fish Bowl, which I've been lucky enough to participate in the last few years. Seeing all the invites go out on Twitter has been amazing. Shout out to Gary Thorpe, who's managed to get in this year, and the fantasy front office. Some of my friends from my hometown have got in there. But I got approached by the UK version, which is the JTT Cup. Now, the best thing about this, chaps, is it's a best ball league. So if you play fantasy football, you know, you just draft your team and then you don't need to do anything with it. It's for the Joshua Tarrant Trust charity. So they're raising funds for a children's charity and they work with children with brain tumours. So obviously when they reached out and said, come on, we've been running for 4 years. You've not taken part yet. Matt Cullen, who's a Jets fan on Twitter, reached out to me. So I am going to be taking part. Now, the challenge I've got, Lee, is I'm representing the 49er Faithful UK. So what I want everybody is you guys to pick my team name for this charity tournament. The wackier, the better. So between now and next Wednesday, hit me up on social media, hit me up on my DMs. And what we'll do, Lee, we'll pick one next week on next week's show. And the best one voted by the people will be my team name in that charity. If you do want a bit more information on that charity and that competition, do reach out to me. And
Can I make an early nomination for your team name? I just thought of one there. Totally Hopeless.
Not the first person to say that to me, Eric, but
Bit obvious, maybe.
I believe you wanted to ask a question.
No, it's okay. I think the moment's gone. But yeah, Totally Hopeless. That's my nomination for your team name. I'm sure that the community will come up with one, some nicer ones, and two, some better ones, because it's not the best, but it's the best I've got.
Well, if it wasn't for a children's charity, obviously Pancake eating Mother Trucker would have been my guess.
Well, to be honest, Eric, so Lee helped out with the thumbnail because we had a change in scheduling with our guests. And I didn't notice the Pancake eating Mother Trucker. I think this morning I was like, I'm sure Gowland's got a secret camera. How does he see my notes with stuff like this? But also, Lee, Matt Miyoko, who we know is a big fan of the show. Big thank you to Matt for shouting me out on the 14th of April edition of 49ers Talk. If you haven't already done so, go check it out. Won't spoil it. But he asked for fan questions on Twitter. I reached out and he was gracious enough to acknowledge the UK faithful and name me personally. So, Matt, if you'd love to jump on the 49er Faithful UK live, we'd be more than happy to have you. I've plugged the Zoom call. Anything else that we need to mention, Lee, before we load the video up and get on out of here?
No, I think that's it, mate. I think you've done a very good job hosting today.
Really looking forward to the draft. And just remember, Vontae Mack no matter what.
Yeah.
Hey, can't beat a bit of draft day. So thank you to everyone who tuned in tonight. The chat has been on fire, as Eric said earlier. Thank you to the both of you. I know you're both busy, family commitments, work commitments. It does mean a lot to me personally that you can jump on. We've hit the 1,000 subs. We've hit the watch hours. We're getting approached by companies to promote products. We are living the dream, as our good friend John Chapman says. I will be back next week at 8 p.m. Andy Davies from across the pod, who's a Miami Dolphins fan, will be joining me. Roles reversed. I've been on his show many a time. I'm getting him on this show, and we're going to break down a few things which I've not yet decided. I might have another couple of guests joining us. But until next time, chaps, all that is left for me to say is stay safe and go Niners.
Bang, bang, Niner gang.
We love the San Francisco 49ers deep in the heart. Like Joe Montana in the corner, deep Clark. Garrison Hurst, stiff farm going 99. Don't get it twisted, one and all with prime time.